Hey guys, welcome to this presentation and demo on our PPM QuickStart. This is just a walkthrough really to get you guys a little bit more familiar with some of the new tools and services that we're seeing from Microsoft and how we approach that with our PPM QuickStart solution that helps you with getting up and running with the tool, allowing us to bring in some of our templates, reports, and of course training in order to get your teams up and running and working with the tool. So hopefully you guys will enjoy this presentation. Look forward to any feedback, any questions that you guys might have, and enjoy the presentation. See you on the other side. Welcome everybody to this presentation and demo covering our PPM QuickStart solution. We like to say that this is one of the quickest and easiest ways to get up and running with Project and Project Online, and now Project for the web. So what we wanted to cover, what we want to go through in this presentation and demo is what you're seeing here, and how we can help you as you evaluate Project Online and Project for the web, and you potentially look at our PPM QuickStart solution to get you going. So one of the very first things that we'll look at will be essentially getting the environment set up and configured properly based on your specific organizational requirements. We'll also look at other Office 365 applications that you might be using and how that would integrate with what you're trying to do around the project management area. We'll also bring in templates and help you with defining your processes, and of course there's a training element to it, making sure that the different roles, the different users are being trained properly. Then of course there's dashboards and reports. These are predefined dashboards that we bring in, but we also customize these based on your specific data elements, right? And how you want to receive these reports, and there's different ways in which we handle that. And then of course ongoing support. We want to make sure that we continue to help you out even after we've handed the tool over to you. So as I mentioned, the very first thing that we work with you on is getting the overall environment set up. So some of you may have already started that, where you've configured perhaps a couple different PWA instances, for example. So it will depend upon how far you are with purchasing the different licenses and who is doing what. You might already have some of that pretty well built out. But that's one of the first things that we look at, is providing that guidance around who needs what and the different roles that you're going to define. Then we move into actually working with you through working sessions to gather the appropriate information that we need in order to configure the environment. And there's also some knowledge transfer that goes along with this, basically helping you understand the different areas of the tool. So getting the environment set up, making sure that it's configured properly, and also there's an element of knowledge transfer there as well. We're also very sensitive to the fact that if you are running other Office 365 applications, that there's going to be some overlap, and often there's going to be perhaps even some confusion around where your users should be doing different things, whether it's storing project-related documents, whether it's updating task activities, or potentially raising an issue. These are all different things that should be pretty well defined as you start to incorporate these different tools along with projects. So we help with that, also providing training and support in these other applications like Teams and Planner and Flow and Visio and the various Office 365 apps. The other part to this is, of course, being able to clearly define how you want your project managers to be using the tool, and having well-defined processes is going to get you there. And so that's another area that we help you out with, to make sure that not only are they defined, but that they're easily accessible, that they're up to date, that they've been reviewed and signed off on by the PMO. And then the training element portion of it, which is making sure that you've defined your roles, but that each of those roles are well trained. And then lastly, we have the different dashboards that can be presented to different users with various information based on whether they're looking at a portfolio, whether they're looking at a program, or they're a project manager who needs to get detailed information on a particular project that they might be working on. That, along with ongoing support that we provide you after we hand over the tool. Of course, we want to make sure that you are getting questions answered, that if there's changes that need to be made, that we're there to support you, to basically give you that confidence that that you're really running at the peak, and that you have a support team behind you as you work through the tool. Now, in terms of an implementation, time frame wise, these are the major phases that we go through. In this illustration, you're seeing that we're looking at about a month, 30 days, 45 days, based on availability, based on workload. These are all different things that will factor into it. But I think that 30 to 60 day time frame for getting all of this done from beginning to end is a good way to look at this from a timing perspective. The major phases are the data gathering. We want to make sure that we work with you in these different sessions to collect all the necessary information we need in order to configure it. Then, of course, setting it up, configuring the environment, moving then into training, piloting the environment, and then, of course, there's the handover part of it, and then eventually we move into support, where you're up and running and you're off to the races, and now you just look to us for support. All right, so let's jump into this demo. I wanted to get started with talking about the overall setup, the environment setup, and then lead a little bit into the configuration area. So when I talk about this whole notion of the initial setup, really referring to making sure that you have all of the licenses that you need, that you fully understand how to associate each user to the appropriate license. So much of that will be making sure that you go in and define your roles properly, and really who needs to have access to what. So what I already have set up here are just a couple different settings in these different tabs, so I'll jump around a little bit. But here what you're noticing is we have one of our users, one of our team members, and you can see the plan that she has associated with her in order to make sure that obviously that she has all the access that she properly needs. So when it comes to project and associating the licenses, once you have establish whatever provider you're using, if you're using a third party, if you're going directly with Microsoft, once you've purchased the license, then you can associate it to the necessary user. So in this case, this would be the first thing that you would do, is just make sure that you have all of that properly squared away. The other aspect to this is, notice that I'm jumping again to a different tab, and where I am here is in the SharePoint Administrative Center. And what I'm in, or the area that I'm in, is just simply looking at all of the active sites that I'm managing within SharePoint. Because when you set out to provision your PWA instances, this is where you're going to manage them. And they make it very easy for you to create these instances, but you want to make sure that you have a specific plan and a strategy. So what you'll notice just right off the bat is that there are certain templates that are being used here, and notice that these ones are set up with the project web app site. So when the site was created, a specific template was selected, and you'll do that simply from the create here. So you'll go into create, choose the appropriate template, which in this case will be the project web app site, give it a name, determine storage, determine the administrator, and then obviously create it and then work with it from that point forward. Really, this is something that you might already have done, and you're on your way to actually working with each of the different instances that you've created. Now, jumping back a little bit, I'm going to go back to the 365 home. when you have that subscription and you are set up as a user to be using Project, you'll notice that I'm logged in here. You can see that there I am, and there's my my profile, the profile that I can get to, and I can log out, sign out from this location. But since I have the one of the project licenses associated to me, I'm going to see this project icon. Now, the license that I have associated to my account is going to determine exactly what happens when I click on this. That's one of the areas that you would want to make a determination around, because you're going to have different options. So when I click on project here, you're noticing that it's taking me to a very specific location, which is project.microsoft.com. So you can think of this as basically the landing page for project, right? This is the project home as it's known. And you see right off the bat that there is a new blank project here that I can start creating projects from. Now, if I just had the P1 license, and we have a number of different videos where I go into a lot of the licenses and how to basically purchase them, how to get more information from Microsoft's website, from our website on the different licensing. So I won't go into that into too much detail. But if I just had the P1 license, this would be as far as I would go. I would just simply be able to start creating new projects. But there's a lot of functionality here. And so I don't want to make light of that, but I want to make sure that we understand the difference between the P1 license, the project for the web P1 license, which allows you to be able to start creating projects right from this landing page, from this landing site, as opposed to working with the full-blown Project Online. Okay, so part of the PPM QuickStart is making sure that we have a well-established understanding of the difference between managing projects out of here with the P1 license and Project Online, and leveraging the P3 and the P5 as well as the Essentials license, right, for the users that are going to be connecting into Project Online. So there's a lot of different licenses there. They have different functionality and they're serving different purposes. So we want to make sure that we have that very well defined very early on. Okay, well, make a note of where we are here as we land on this project home, and again make reference to the URL, and also note that when I click on Project Online, where it takes us to, because now we're going to go into a different area. So when I click on Project Online, where this is going is it's taking me to a very specific instance of what's known as PWA, the Project Web App. So this is the area that we help you out with getting up and running on this part of the tool, because this is not anything that you will get when you provision a PWA instance. It's going to basically be a blank slate, right? Completely empty, no users, no specific organizational settings, no templates, no security setup, nothing that you would be able to really use as an organization until you do some level of configuration and setup. So it's a great starting point, but it doesn't get you very far. And that's really where, again, this Quick Start comes in, where we help you with taking your organizational data and getting it into the system and into the tool. So this is what a typical Quick Start will look like, where you have specific fields that have been defined. We've also worked with you to organize how you want to either roll up your projects or define your projects. Also track various information, like in this case we have information like the state of the project that we're tracking. If I scroll over here to the right, you'll notice that there's some budget numbers, some financial numbers that we're tracking, some additional KPIs, some schedule indicators, as well as any kind of program affiliation that these potential projects would have. So this is the very early part of the process around making sure that we get your information into the tool and set up and configure properly. Now, one of the benefits of working with Project Online is the ability to obviously share this very valuable project information to the appropriate users. So we're able to store this project info and then of course make it available. So let's look at a couple of these. We won't spend a lot of time on the functionality of the project web app. We have a lot of videos on that. We'll look more about what we're doing with this QuickStart. So as you can see here, I dropped into that project and now I'm looking at very specific information related to this particular project. In this case, it's this Build Out Central project. It shows the owner, what program it belongs to, the state of the project, the size of it. There's some descriptive information, really metadata around the project that we're capturing. What it's also giving us, notice over here on the left-hand side, there's a schedule link. If I click on the schedule link, it's taking me into the details of the actual schedule. And you can see that there is also a schedule status indicator to tell us that we're potentially off from our baseline. The other benefit, of course, is being able to leverage areas like project sites where you can do much of the collaboration around your projects. This is where you're expected to store documents. This is where potentially you can store any of your risks and issues. There's also a deliverables list that you can work with. So it's completely extendable in terms of what you want to do with these sites. You can use them as basically collaborative areas that your team can work on. And because it's just simply a SharePoint site, you can pull all of this into your team's environment. And I'll show you a little bit of that later on when we get to the integration piece. But just know that it's very easy to make this type of information available to your users once you get everything up and running. Now, the other part, as I've been mentioning, is this whole notion of integration with other applications like Teams, like potentially Visio, and of course working with SharePoint, because all of this is built on the SharePoint framework, so we get all of that functionality like you saw there with just simply looking at the sites. So from here, I want to show you some of the integration points specifically around how you can leverage Teams. So normally, if I was a user and let's say I was filling out specific information related to tasks that were assigned to me. So under normal circumstances, if I wasn't using Teams, the expectation would be that I would browse out to this particular site, I would navigate to the tasks area, and I would start marking tasks that I've completed, right? Essentially entering in all of the actuals, right? The actual hours I spent, potentially remaining hours that I have on the task, and any other kind of updates that I want to provide the project manager. Well, if I'm using Teams, what I can do is I can integrate that task management part of the tool directly into Teams. And the whole idea behind this is making sure that, right, our team members have easy access to the relevant information related to the projects that they're working on, specifically updating their tasks. So what I've done is I just clicked on Teams and I'm bringing it up here. And what you're noticing is I'm in a particular area. These are all the teams that I have. I'm working with these different channels. So when I introduce a channel, I'm going to get a number of different tabs that I can work with in each of these channels. So these are all of the channels that I've created around this particular team, which is just simply called Project and Teams Integration. And this is the way that you'll structure your Teams environment, where these channels may be in alignment with particular project initiatives or program initiatives that you might have. It's going to depend on how you structure this. But in any case, what you're noticing here is this new channel that I've created, which is just simply called Task and PWA Project Teams Integration, that there's a number of tabs that have been created. Notice that there's this posts, there's a files area, there's a wiki, and there was the ability for me to add this other tab, which is just a window into what I just showed you in that task management area. So normally the user would have to go out to PWA to get to this particular task management area, but instead I'm just introducing it right here into Teams. So when I was referencing this whole idea of where to store documents, this is a decision point that you would need to make to say, well, are we storing all those files here? Now, the other area that wanted to touch upon was this whole idea of setting up your templates, setting up your processes, making sure that you have training easily accessible to your users. And much of that is going to be done by essentially setting up. So notice that there's the QuickStart, but also right to the right of that is a link called simply PMO. If I click on the PMO, you'll notice that if you look at the website address, that it's actually just a subsite of this PPM QuickStart. So it's underneath it, right? It's a subsite. The idea behind this PMO site, because it's its own unique site, is this is going to support the project management office. So if a user wants to learn about a process, the user wants to get one of the latest templates for maybe a business case, something along those lines, or is looking for training material on how to troubleshoot a particular item, right? Or they want to know when there's an upcoming meeting, for example, related to the steering committee meeting, right? And when you're going to, that should all be stored somewhere, right? You want to manage that in a particular location, and this is where you could potentially do that. So you can establish, and this is where we help you with establishing libraries like simply just project management or PMO library items, which you're seeing here. Anything from, as I mentioned, business cases to potentially change request forms, communication plans, all of them can be stored here. They could be versioned, updated, and reviewed as necessary. This is also where potentially we would store our reports. So I'll navigate back to the QuickStart. And you might have noticed there's a link over to the left-hand side that says Report Center. There's also this tile here with the graphic called Reports. And they're both going to take us to the same location. This is essentially just a landing page for all of the reports, simply just called the PPM QuickStart Report Center. And so this is something that we also work with you to build out to make sure that the reports, these dashboard reports, are again easily accessible leveraging Power BI. So if I click on Portfolio Dashboard, this is going to take us into a very specific page where simply what we're doing here is we're feeding up a Power BI report into a page. So this could be shared, of course. This is security trimmed. So based on user permissions will be whether or not they can even get to this particular page. But this is pulling in all that project information, and in this case you're seeing that there's a couple different items here for filtering. Maybe I want to look at projects based on the project state, for example, just those projects that are approved, right? And it gives me some nice filtering there. Take that off. Maybe I'll use one of the visualizations and I want to see all projects by a particular department. Let's look at production. Click on production. So now it's just going to filter down and only show me those production projects, and it looks like the scope health of this excavation Southside project, right, managed by this owner. I can look at some dates here to get some more information, and then I can just click back on production to get out of that. Okay, maybe I want to see all the projects that are managed by that particular owner. Just come up here and click on that user, click out of it, and again I can see those. Right, there's that excavation project yet again. Now I'm going to go back to the home page here, and the last thing we'll touch upon is the training component. So of course there's going to be formalized training, but there's also training that is tailored to your specific setup of your environment. So as we gathered the necessary requirements, there are specific fields that you're using, specific templates that you expect your users to be working with. So we incorporate that into the training. We want to make sure that their users are trained on your process, right? And they're working through the necessary steps. And that's why I always say that in this case, we want to stay inside the box. Don't think too much outside of it. We want you to flow through that process. But this is really where we're communicating it, and we're also providing different training elements. Here you can see there's a project management PDF. So appreciate it, guys. Thanks for hanging out and working through this presentation and demo. And by all means, reach out if you do have any questions, any comments on this presentation and demo. If you'd like some more information, if you would like a personalized demo, we can certainly set that up. All right, thanks again for attending. Appreciate it. Cheers. Hey guys, thanks for checking out our videos. Please subscribe to get updates on Project Online, the new project for web, and other interesting and fun topics. So look forward to seeing you, and we'll be pushing some more videos up. So subscribe and check out the next video.